I want to now talk for a few minutes, if I could, about the issue of disparity across Ohio. And this is something that I have talked about before, but I think it is an appropriate topic for today. In my inaugural address as the governor of the state of Ohio, I laid out the values that would guide our administration, the values and principles that are part of really who I am and who this administration is and what we think is really important for Ohio. At that inaugural speech, I said, in part, everyone, no matter where they were born or who their parents are, deserves the chance to succeed, to get a good paying job, to raise a family comfortably, and to be secure in their future, end of quote. And I certainly meant that. Within 5 minutes of taking my oath of office as governor, I signed an executive order implementing policies against discrimination in state government. Our government exists to protect people so they can live their lives and achieve their dreams with the fundamental purposes laid out in our Ohio Constitution: to establish justice, promote the welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for all. The essential function of government is to protect the most vulnerable among us. That is the most important job. Those, to paraphrase the late United States Senator Hubert Humphrey, who are in the dawn of life, in the twilight of life, in the shadows of life. Yet, despite many great efforts over the years by many people, we still have too many Ohioans who are living in the shadows of opportunity. Too many Ohioans are still living at the margins. Still, there is racism in Ohio and across our country. There's inequity in Ohio and across this great land. And still, there are both economic and health disparities in Ohio and in this country. One of the things that I think about every day is that I am the governor for all the people of the state of Ohio. It's my job to serve all the people of the state of Ohio. It is our job to defend the defenseless, and it's my job, I believe, to bring people together, to seek out many opinions, many ideas, and to find solutions to the problems that are holding this state and too many of our citizens back. I seek dialogue with every Ohioan to solve these problems. I'm seeking strategies for the implementation of the changes that we need. And I'm looking for real answers to the real problems of the structural impediments to equality in the state of Ohio. Whether it is in the urban core of our cities or the hills of Appalachia, we have Ohioans, frankly, in every county, who are not living up to their God-given potential because they simply do not have the same opportunity as other Ohioans do. And that is wrong, and we have a moral obligation to strive every day to do something about it. Benjamin Franklin once said that, and I quote, "Justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are." We should all be outraged that in the year 2020 in Ohio and in this country, there's still inequality of opportunity and there is still racism. The coronavirus, this global pandemic, has laid bare our vulnerabilities, our fears, our outrage, our uncertainty, our disparities, and our injustices. We must come together to try to solve these historic injustices. And I intend to bring people together to create hope and opportunity for all Ohioans. This is about race, but it's about other things as well. It's about ethnic disparities. It's about poverty. It's about educational inequality. It's about the underserved. It's about the marginalized, whether that is people of color, or the elderly, or a young person. The inequality that we see. Or whether it's about someone who is a person with disabilities. Race is certainly a factor in all kinds of health, education, and economic disparities. The divisions of race have plagued this country since its inception. While there are no simple solutions, all of us, I think, have an obligation to be a positive voice in advancing change for all those who are marginalized. And we have an obligation to create equality in health, education, and economic opportunity for all our citizens. The legislature and I have, in a bipartisan way, over the last 16, 17 months, made a start. We've laid a foundation. Is it enough? Certainly not. We must go further. And that is our challenge. And I will be reaching out to members of the General Assembly in the coming days to work on these issues. We must continue, and some of this we have started, but despite our challenges with the budget, we must continue to work together on the problem of lead paint that is poisoning, still poisoning in 2020, some of our children. We must continue to work to reduce infant mortality and maternal mortality. And we must do everything we can to change those outcomes among the African American community and those of color, where many times those death rates are 3 times that of their white brothers and sisters. We're going to continue to focus on home visiting programs for at-risk first-time mothers, and we're going to continue to fight the drug epidemic in Ohio. We must continue to prioritize the availability of mental health services for everyone who needs them, and wellness efforts for all our children in Ohio. We must continue to make sure that our law enforcement officers have the proper training on implicit bias, on de-escalation techniques, on recognizing their brothers and sisters who have a mental health challenge. And we must work to create best practices for police departments. And we must see that that gets adopted by all police departments in the state of Ohio. Later this week, I hope to be talking to the members of the General Assembly about the specifics of some of this. And I hope to be able to talk to you on Thursday about the specifics of some of these proposals in regard to law enforcement. We must improve law enforcement's access to quality training. It's an ongoing process. We made progress 8 years that I was Attorney General, Governor Kasich, and the state legislature. We worked together to improve those things. We must continue that. We must enhance transparency in regard to the police, transparency between the public and our police departments. We must work to recruit more minorities, people of color, to serve as law enforcement officers. We must have more oversight in regard to, and police oversight and accountability in regard to our police departments. As I said the other day, the vast majority of our law enforcement men and women do a phenomenal job. We have to support them. We have to give them the training. We have to give them the help that they need. We will also have proposals, though, about how we more accurately target those individuals who have demonstrated that they should not be police officers. A specific problem that I hope to be able to address is the problem of, we have seen, and again, it's a rogue person who is a police officer who demonstrates in one department that they should not be a police officer. They're fired, they leave, and then they show up and we see them again in another police department. It's a problem that we have to address. I want to talk now for a moment about the work that our Minority Health Strike Force is doing and will continue to do. We're going to continue COVID-19 testing for vulnerable populations. The National Guard will play a role in that. And so this is something that you will be seeing within the next month as we target underserved populations, again, whether they be in our small counties, whether it be in Appalachia, whether it be in our cities, but targeting populations that do not have the best access to testing. Testing is a work in progress. We're going to continue to move in this area. It has not moved as fast as I want it, but it's moving. And it's going to continue to move at a faster and faster rate. And as it moves at a faster and faster rate, we have an obligation, a moral obligation, to make sure that no matter what your color or where you live in the state of Ohio, that there is equal access to that. Our Minority Health Strike Force intends to announce additional recommendations later in June aimed at alleviating long-term racial disparities in health, and we will continue to do that. I believe that all Ohioans really want the same things. Our goal should always be to recognize that each of us has intrinsic dignity. Each of us has intrinsic worth, not for what we do, but simply for who we are. We must value each other as equals and treat each other as equals, because the basic truth is that everyone does better when everyone has real opportunity. Over the last several days, I've been reminded of former Congressman William McCullough's words upon passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. William McCullough was from the western part of the state of Ohio, a person who probably did not have a lot of African Americans in his district. Graduate of the College of Worcester, ranking member of the U.S. House Judiciary Committee, played an absolutely prominent role in making sure the civil rights legislation of the 60s, the mid-60s, actually became law. Congressman McCullough, who felt that the legislation was so very, very important, also, though, talked about how life is not changed by laws alone, but by how people live with those laws. And here's what he said. How do you tear hatred and suspicion out of the heart of a man? No statutory law can completely end discrimination. Intelligent work and vigilance by members of all races will be required for many years before discrimination completely disappears. That was in the 60s. We are now 55 years, pushing 60 years later. We have work to do, and we must continue that work. It is dangerous when we let words become weapons. So I think the most important thing that we can do is to let our actions speak louder than our words. Words are important. Words of the protesters, very significant, need to be heard. But those of us in government, those of us who have the ability to change things directly, we have to take this opportunity to do that. This is truly our moment to do the hard work, the intelligent work and vigilance, the intelligent work and vigilance that is required to ensure that all Ohioans have the same opportunities. All Ohioans have the opportunity to lead healthy and good lives, that all Ohioans have the opportunity to raise their family in a secure situation. All Ohioans are given the opportunity to be productive and to live meaningful lives. This is a moment. It is really a moment in history, and it is our time to act. So I look forward to working with the legislature. I look forward to working with the mayors, county commissioners around the state of Ohio as we strive to make this a more just society and strive to make sure all Ohioans are moving forward in this great state.